Greetings. My name is John Frahm, and this is T.Q.M Insights and Stories, episode 4. And what we're going to focus in on is hiring the best. I remember when a manager once said to me that hiring is the most important activity and most important decision that I'll ever do as a leader. I didn't believe him at the time, but I certainly, with the benefit of hindsight, can safely say he was absolutely right. Now, I make an argument that says, you can either go to Harvard Business School and spend, $50, $60, $70,000 a year, whatever it is nowadays, or you can spend a few $100 and buy all the books that I have there on the screen. And the book that we're going to focus in on is at the top row, book to the third book to your right, and it's called Hiring the Best. And I have found that book to be the most helpful, and I'll explain why. But to level set, what I basically argue, the reason I'm doing these messages, is I think leadership at all levels, so in business, yes, in politics, yes, government, yes, service, manufacturing, yes, there's such an absence of leadership. There is so little good supervision anymore. I mean, just the basic things that you would just think that would be natural, sadly, are grossly overlooked and in some cases non-existent. And then everyone's trying to figure out, why are we struggling all the time? I guess this might be a silly example, but it's like you want to live a long life, but what are you doing? Well, I know I'm drinking alcohol every day in excess, and I'm smoking 4 packs of cigarettes every day, and I'm eating Twinkies. And I sit on the couch, all day long. So I eat Twinkies and I smoke and I drink all day long. But yet you want to live to your 90 years old. I don't think that's going to happen. And that's kind of what I see within leadership. There's just so many unhealthy things that have become normal to us, and so much confusion. And so what I want to try to do is bring more light than heat. Okay, so what I'm suggesting is that if you buy these books, you'll benefit from them. You have to do the work. And if you don't buy the books, well, then these messages are not going to be very much beneficial to you. And certainly if you find better books, well, then I'm all for that, by the way. But certainly Hiring the Best is one that I would highly recommend, as I do all the books. But I'm simply pointing out, unless you invest, unless you see that, this is nuts, what we're doing, that we got to get back to the basics. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm proposing. Like, I'm giving you solid information, resources, books by experts. I'm not asking you to listen to me. I'm asking you to listen to Dr. Edward Deming as an example. So that's that. Now, how are we going to talk about hiring? So I want to give you some principles, and then I'm going to tell you 2 stories. I think that's how we're going to go about it. So principle number 1, why is the book good? Hiring the Best. Well, because it will help you ask really smart questions so that you can make good decisions on who you're hiring. That's the reason why. So, for example, you may ask the question because conflict, the ability to work well with others, it's a great challenge. And so what you might ask a question is, have you ever had a conflict at work? You might ask an applicant that. Have you ever had a conflict at work? And typically what's going to happen is the person is going to say, no, I've never had a conflict at work. And then you move on. And that's the mistake. What Hiring the Best will give you is, it will have you ask the question this way. When you have a conflict at work, how have you addressed it in the past? Give me 2 or 3 examples. See the difference? You don't ask, have you had a conflict at work? No, I haven't. Okay, we're going to move on. Okay, there's no challenging the person there. The vast majority of the time, even if it's kind of minor, there's always going to be some conflict, some problem that needs to be solved. And so the way you ask the question is tell me how you resolved, 2 or 3 conflicts at your current places of employment. Tell me about the conflicts and tell me what was the outcome. How did you resolve it? What did you learn from it? Now we're promoting discussion, because what you want is the applicant to speak, maybe 80% of the time. And while you asking the questions, you're speaking maybe 20% of the time. And that's what hiring the best will help you do. Ask really smart, probative questions so you can assess. What I find in most interviews, when I do a bad interview, is where I'm doing 50% of the talking. That's a mess. That's just, no, you don't want to do that. You want the applicant to be speaking. So that's the book. Number 2, so what are you trying to accomplish when you're hiring somebody? Well, you're trying to add somebody to the team that's going to bring value to delight customers. That's what you're wanting to do. So, regardless of what the role is, you want to hire somebody that is either better or has the potential of being better than yourself. I shouldn't have to say it, but I do. There are managers and VPs and presidents of companies and CEOs and supervisors who always they downgrade. They hire people that have less skills than themselves, less abilities, because they feel threatened if they hire all-stars. And so nobody admits it, but that's what's happening. So your goal is to hire people who will help you delight customers. And what your aim is, and you might be absolutely exceptional in your job, but your aim is to hire people who potentially, at least potentially, can do your job better. Okay? So I want to put that out there. Third, are you trying to mechanically create some kind of diversity? You're purposely trying to create some kind of outcome that will show diversity. And the answer is no. I think it's very insincere to do it that way. So at Hart Hanks, and I think they taught me the best, is discrimination isn't only illegal, but it is immoral. It's wrong. So enough said on that. I don't really have to explain that, or at least I shouldn't have to. But what it also does, if you discriminate, is you will overlook talent, and that is to your detriment. What you want is talent. You're not trying to hire all men or all women or all whites or all blacks or all Hispanics or Asians. You're looking for talent. Wherever it might be, all shapes or sizes, you're looking for talent. All shapes, all sizes. And again, I shouldn't have to say it, but I do, because people say, well, there's power in diversity, and there's, and look, I have a diverse workforce. Look what I've accomplished. Well, that may be good. It may be good if it happened organically, just because you hired a bunch of talented people. And so if your workplace is all, let's say, ladies, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as they're the most talented. And it's all men. Well, because they happen to be the most talented. I find these things of great variation, meaning that there's times where I'm hiring a pool of people that have great diversity, different worldviews, different political beliefs. And then there's times where it seems like the selection is pretty slim. And I'm a white male, and I happen to seem like I'm hiring, like my last 4 hires have all been white males. Well, it happened that way organically. There was nothing I was trying to create. So you're looking for talent, is my point. And the detriment, so if you discriminate, well, I would say you shouldn't be a leader. Shame on you for discrimination. But it's not only illegal, it's not only immoral, but it's this point that Hart Hanks emphasized, is you're leaving talent on the table. It's a bad business decision is my point that I'm trying to make. Oh, I don't want to overlook the fact that it is illegal and immoral. I think those things are the most important. In fact, I would say the fact that it is immoral is what should trouble us the most. But I'm simply pointing out you overlook talent. There is a movie, and I think it's fairly accurate. It's called Moneyball, and it applies statistics to Major League Baseball. And I would recommend watching that movie because it makes this point that the Oakland A's are going to be different because they're not going to overlook talent. And so it drives that 1 point home fairly well, and I would recommend that to you. Okay, so you want to hire people that potentially could be better than you. Don't let talent scare you. You're looking for people who can help you delight customers, and you're looking for talent. And I've given you a book to ask the best questions that are probative so you can find that talent. Fair enough? Now let me give you 2 stories. I was a press room manager, and to become a director at Hart Hanks, you had to have at least 2 functional areas under your belt. So the 3 functional areas are press and packaging or inserting, and then pre-press. Well, I decided to start going to school for pre-press because I wanted to be a director one day. It was always my dream to run my own print site, and I've had the blessings to actually run 5, so my cup runneth over. I've just been thrilled the fact that I've been able to do what I love to do. And so I decided to go into pre-press. Now, press rooms are very intimidating, but I went into the pre-press department, which was going through an enormous amount of change because of desktop publishing. And it was a hostile environment. I couldn't believe it. I mean, the press rooms are always can be the most challenging places to work, without a doubt. And so I'm walking into this pre-press, and it's just like oh my goodness, the hostility level, and I just couldn't really understand where it was coming from. But part of the answer was there was just an enormous amount of change, and that change made people feel uncomfortable. And it was uncomfortable for everybody, frontline employees as well as management. And so I went into pre-press, and I went on the most difficult shifts. So there was 2 facilities, and there were 6 shifts because we worked days, swing, and nights. And I was working the swing shift. So out of the 6 crews, if you will, I had the most difficult crew. And that was nerve-wracking. I remember I would get to work 30, 45 minutes early just to settle my nerves. I'm not going to go into all the details because it will take away with the heart of what this episode is about, which is hiring the best. But what I had to do was get involved. And yes, as a new manager in there, I was the stupid pressman, right, who didn't know anything about desktop publishing. But I excel. I learned quickly. And I was going to school at a junior college before desktop publishing, which people didn't know. So I was learning Photoshop and Illustrator and Quark Express. And so I was learning all of these things. And there was a lot of weeks where I was working 6 or 7 days a week. So again, you commit yourself to something. You do the hard work. Guess what happens? You get really good at it. So I was getting involved. And as I was getting, because there was, let's say I had a team of 60 employees. And I would say there was about 6 people who were very problematic, who were coming to work every day to work against what the company wanted to accomplish. They did not want to delight customers. It was like it was their job to cause as much havoc and bottlenecks as possible. Don't understand it, don't know where it came from, but it was extraordinary. It was extraordinary. Clearly, these individuals had multiple issues. So, and the company had been very patient with them. So when I got involved, I'm bringing more illumination. But that illumination is making front and center that there are performance issues. And so I start addressing those performance issues, and people are shocked. And so there's even greater hostility against me, especially from these individuals who I'm holding accountable. And so they're going to HR and they're going to the director. And these are individuals that are just doing, poor performance, everywhere from low productivity to making errors to showing up to work late to coming back from breaks late. Just have just a very, just there was no urgency. There was no concern for their jobs at all, but yet they kept wanting to get a paycheck. It was nuts. It was just completely nuts. I can't rationalize it, but sometimes we just inherit something. We walk into something that sometimes you can't make sense of it. What you have to do is just address it. So I was addressing it, and I would say it probably took me 6 months, 9 months, and then lo and behold, 4 out of the 6 individuals resigned. They left, and then the remaining 2, they changed. So that changed the dynamic of Swing Shift dramatically. So that means then I have to go out and hire 4 people. And I went out, and the HR department at the time was really solid about recruiting and background checks and everything else. And so there was a process where there was a pre-screening process. So when I sat down with an applicant, they kind of already jumped through some hoops. And I probably interviewed less than 10 people, and I found 4 all-stars out of those 10 people. 4 all-stars out of those 10 people. They were going to be hired, and within a short period of time, they would probably be the best. And these were people who had skills far greater than myself. They had the technical skills, the design skills, and they worked really well with others. And so, yes, and I'm asking them questions from hiring the best, without a doubt. So all of a sudden, now these individuals just, like this recruiting, interviewing, like within 2 weeks. And so they joined the team. So think about, so 4 people who were working against me, against the goal of delighting customers, are gone. And now I've got 4 individuals who excel. They just fell into my lap, and I said, "You're hired. Here you are. I did my due diligence." And it worked amazingly well. And all of a sudden now, I'm looked upon as like the greatest manager ever. but I did some things, but I didn't cause those 4 individuals to resign. Maybe they saw the writing on the wall. And I didn't find these, if I interviewed 10 and I hired 4, and I guess I get credit for hiring the 4. But, when you put 4 all-stars in front of you, it's not that hard to hire them. So I hired them, and so productivity went up, and morale went up, and people, and the synergies, and people helping each other and caring about their internal customers. In our case, this would be the press room. It was absolutely amazing. And HR was stunned because the number of complaints and all the investigations that had to go on, because people were making up stuff all left and right and had very little to do with me. All that vanished. It all went away. It became a healthy team. Now, in the hiring, there was one individual who had a physical handicap. And I would tell you, I'm not going to go into the details of it, but I would tell you that physical handicap would prevent most people from hiring this person, because they would believe that physical handicap would slow them down. And I would say that was probably a fairly reasonable conclusion, unless you dug in a little bit deeper. Again, going back to hiring the best. So I knew that this individual with this physical handicap, and if I told you, you would understand why it would slow them down. So, John, you're going to hire somebody that's going to produce ads at a less productivity than other people because of this physical handicap. And the answer is no. I think they're going to be able to overcome that handicap. So, yes, they'll have to work harder. They'll have to be more diligent. But the point is, the talent that I saw in this individual and the passion and the drive they had to excel would overcome any physical limitations that they've had to live with their entire life. And so that was shocking to people that I hired this person. But I saw talent. This physical handicap didn't make me afraid. Like, oh my goodness, what is John doing? No. I saw talent, and so I hired him. So understand. And these 4 individuals I hired happened to be diverse. It happened to be a diverse group. So it's like, oh, look at John. Look at all the people that he's hiring. Isn't this nice? No. Well, I try to be nice. I always want to be nice. But the issue is, no, I'm just hiring talent. Wherever I see talent, you're tall, you're short, you're a little bit on the thin side, you're a little bit on the heavy side. You have lots of hair, you don't have much hair at all. You're liberal, you're libertarian, you're conservative, whatever your worldview is. I'm not considering any of that. Do you have the talent that I'm looking for? Okay, so I hope that's helpful. Second, many years later now, I'm responsible for the packaging department at the Baltimore Sun. And we have hundreds of employees. At this time, as a director, so instead of having like 60 employees on my team, I have probably like 500. I'm maybe 600. I'm not exaggerating. With the bulk of those being a lot of part-time people that work in packaging. So it was always a challenge to find people. We always paid higher than minimum wage, but it was always a challenge to find people for those part-time packaging positions. And we were wasting a lot of time, just a lot of time in recruiting, because people we would hire, we weren't happy with them, and they wouldn't last very long. And HR didn't help us out because they weren't doing the pre-screening process the way that they should. So we had people join our team that should not have gotten through because of their background. Okay, so I had that going against me as well. So we're hiring some really bad people based on their past records, and I'm talking about like convicted criminals, and so it's just a mess. It's just a mess. So we're hiring the wrong people, some of them with criminal backgrounds, and I'm not saying all of them, but just some of them. It was like sloppiness. I don't know exactly what happened. And the people that we hired didn't stay very long. So they weren't happy with us and we weren't happy with them. So what on earth am I going to do? And I thought about it. I said, oh, this part-time job is incredibly boring because you're on your feet all day long and you're jogging and feeding and inserting head. So you're feeding inserts. And so it's very repetitive. It's very boring. It's not a job that you can make exciting. So, it's one of these jobs where you could double the wages and people go, I don't want to do it. It's just, I'm on my feet. I'm bored. I'm just bored. So what can I do to overcome this? Well, one thing is we had so much inserting work. We're working 7 days a week, which means then I can offer people some really creative schedules. Like if you're going to school during the week, I've got hours for you on the weekend. If you have a job on the weekend, I can offer you hours during the week. What I need, though, is dependable people. The other thing, too, is I can offer 4-day work weeks and 5-day work weeks. Right? So if you wanted to work full-time, I had so much work, I could do that as well. As well as just work people 2 days a week because they're going to school or something. So I had that. So then the next epiphany that I had was I need to find people who have something they want to accomplish. In other words, I'm only going to hire people, 2 things, positive and a negative. If they have a personal goal to accomplish and they show me that they can work well with others. They know how to resolve conflicts, okay? So let me give you an example. I had individuals who would come to me and I would say, so what brings you here? What are you hoping to accomplish? Just now it's a very open-ended question. And they would say, well, I'm trying to support my family and I've got this other job that I really like and these are the days, but but I need to have like a part-time job at least for the next year or two in order to make things work for my family. And then after finding out that they work well with others, that's exactly the kind of person that I want to hire. They know what they want to accomplish. Another person may say to me, well, I'm going to school Monday through Thursday, and I need money, and I'm available to work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I want to come. I'm here today because I want to go to school, and you can provide me a paycheck so I can go to school. Perfect. You're hired. So people who have a goal, I would say 8 out of 10 people didn't have a goal. They were just like a bumper car. They were just jumping from job to job to job to job because they were really struggling in their careers. And they were struggling because they just had a difficult time of working well with others, including customers. So, for example, like a perfect candidate for me was, I'm working at McDonald's for 3 years, and I want to come here because you'll pay me $2 more an hour, and your schedule fits my school schedule just like McDonald's does. And so that's why I'm here. I need to make more money, and you'll pay me $2 more. And here they are, a 3-year track record at McDonald's. And so they've got good attendance, and they clearly know how to work with customers and work within a crew. And there we go. So that's what I'm looking for. Okay. So when I began interviewing people, again, because the pre-screening wasn't any good, I would meet with maybe like 20 applicants, and maybe I would find on average 1 to 3. It would be like that. And so I spent more time interviewing because let's say if I need to hire 10 people, I mean, I've got to go through a lot to find the gems. Okay. And again, the gems are, they know why they're there, because when they're working and feeding heads and getting really bored, they've got a greater reason for being there. I'm taking care of my family. I'm going to school. There was one person who I hired. She was a remarkable individual, and she said, I'm in television. I'm in radio and television. I said, well, that's fascinating. What are you doing? And she had kind of like a psychology show. Kind of like to help with mental health or counseling. I think counseling would probably be the best way to put it. And so she was giving advice. And I said, well, that's amazing. She goes, yeah, I'm on the radio on these days and stuff like that. And I said, but why are you here though then? I mean, that sounds so amazing. She goes, because you'll pay me and they don't. Because she was an intern. So she goes, hey, I'm gonna work here in Baltimore for 2 or 3 years. Then if I do well, I'll be going to Atlanta. And then if I do well in Atlanta, I'll be going to this, television radio network over in California. I remember her telling me that goal. So here's somebody, and when she dressed for the interview, when she came for the interview, she was dressed as if she could be the publisher, by the way. So again, somebody would look at her and go, she's really overqualified. She's not going to stick around or anything like that. But I learned what she wanted. And what she wanted was, I want to work every Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, because I can commit to her radio television dream on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So it was a match made in heaven, and she did a great job. Did she find the job boring? I bet she did, just like everyone else. Very routine, very practical, but she loved it because it helped her fulfill her dream. Makes sense? So I only hired people that demonstrated to me that they had basic skills to work well with others. So I'm really probing about the conflict. And I'm really probing, why are they here? Why did they apply? What goal do they wanted to achieve? And like I said, maybe 10 to 20% of the people could meet both of those criteria. And when I hired them, and again, lots of effort, lots of work, there's no shortcuts. People thought I was a genius. They go, oh my goodness, look at the people that you're finding. Well, it was hard to find them. So in the first case, like when I was telling my Baltimore story, they just fell into my lap. Here's 4 all-stars, John, out of 10, And in this case, I had to search hard and long to find the all-stars. And yeah, we had to work shorthanded because I couldn't find the people, but I'd rather work shorthanded and have the right people there than people that are just going to create hostility and drama. Because there's nothing worse than coming to work and going, oh my God, I'm coming to work and I'm working with difficult people. I drove that out of the departments. Every department I've managed, I've done a fairly good job in confronting and dealing with difficult people who are being disagreeable just to be disagreeable. Now, this leads me to my greatest story. Now, this story hopefully will stick with you, and I'm going to call this my Allison story. And I'm going to tell you what she told me. So I'm interviewing for the part-time packaging positions. Again, really important because lots of revenue are going through those inserts, okay? And we're producing them at a high rate of speed, and we can only do that if we jog and feed inserts well, okay? So I go to the front, and I meet Allison. I welcome her in, and I can tell right away that something is different. And so we walk by, and she asked me a few questions as we're walking through the packaging floor and the inserting equipment. She's very inquisitive. She lights up. She goes, oh, this is amazing. And we sit down in my office, which was right off the packaging floor, and she immediately takes control of the conversation. Now, whether you like the words she used or not, or you're offended, or if this makes you feel a little uncomfortable, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to tell you exactly what happened. And she said, hi, my name is Allison, and I want you to know that I'm mentally handicapped. My brain, it doesn't work the way your brain works. Okay? And that's how she begins. Hi, my name is Allison, and I'm mentally handicapped. My brain does not work the way that your brain works. She goes, it's really interesting. I just got done. This is my second interview ever. And my first interview, she explained, was I was going for a sales position. And they thought I just was not a good fit. And she was explaining to me what they were selling and how the interview went and all of that. She goes, but this is not a sales position, isn't it? And I said, no, this is an inserting job, and what you see out there where people, again, are standing and jogging and feeding heads. And she's looking at what they're doing. And she goes, well, that's a very routine job. And I go, it is. She goes, so it's just very repetitive. And I go, yes, that's right, Allison, it's very repetitive. She goes, well, I can do that. I can do that. And I can do that really well. And she goes, now listen, because I'm mentally handicapped, it's going to take me longer to learn than the average. So how long does it averagely take to learn that job? And I said, to do it well, some people might get it down in a day. Other people might take 2 days. And she goes, I'll take 3 or 4 days. So that's the bad news. Again, this is how she's talking to me. She takes charge. I really feel like she's interviewing me. She takes charge of the interview right from the beginning, and she never lets it go. She never lets it go. And she says, so here's the bad news. And she talks to me that way. The bad news is I'm going to take twice as long to learn this job. But here's the good news. I'm going to school for the next 4 years. And so if you hire me, I will be here for 4 years. Yes, you have to spend 2 more shifts investing in me, but you get 4 years of service for that. Oh my goodness. Oh my. And she goes, I've checked the bus schedule already. And so this is perfect for me because the shift starts at 7:30 and the bus arrives here at 7 o'clock. So if you want me to start early to sweep up or something like that, I would really appreciate the overtime. And so I would be here. And then my brother's going to come pick me up when the shift is over. And he's going to typically come about 30 minutes after my shift ends. So I can wait in the cafeteria, or again, I could be more than happy to clean up because it looks like you guys could use some help cleaning things up. Totally takes control. But what is she communicating to me? She has no work history, so I don't know how well she works with others. But I can judge how she's interacting with me. And she's interacting with me in a very extraordinary way because she's totally taking the initiative. Number 2, she's thought through everything. How is she going to get there? She wants to maximize her time, so she's willing to sweep up and clean up. And yes, I totally took that opportunity. Yes, I'm happy to pay her overtime to keep, because safety is everything, right? So keeping the department clutter free is so important. And she knew why she was there, because she's going to school. And then she made a point that during the summer when she wasn't in school, she's happy to work any day I want during the summer when she's not in school. So I hired her immediately. Okay. And then as I've got 3 or 4 people all starting on the same day, HR is there. And I remember the HR manager came to me because she was doing, new employee orientation. And she's crying. And she goes, "John, that is so kind of you to hire Allison. So kind of you, John." She was all emotional and crying and all that. I said, "No, you don't understand." I go, she goes, "Excuse me?" She goes, "You don't understand. Allison will be an all-star. She'll be one of the most superior performers on this entire floor." So let's just say if I had, 500 or 600 employees, probably packaging would have been about like 350, 400. And what I'm saying to you is, in a short order, Allison would be definitely one of the top 5% of packaging employees out of that whole group. And it played out exactly the way she described it. It did take her 4 days. She did work for us for 4 years. She was an exceptional employee. It's just her mind worked differently. And what was interesting about the interview is I said to her, "Allison, that sales company that you applied for made a tremendous mistake." I said, "You are a great natural salesperson because you have sold me completely." And it was a privilege to give her her first job. So my point being is, I want to really emphasize, so there's 2 different types of physical handicaps here that I'm pointing out. One was in Baltimore, and that was more physical. And then this was more of a mental handicap, meaning that as Alyssa would describe it, her brain did not work or function the way that other people do. So the way she articulated herself, the way she would express herself, or the way that she would ask questions was just a little bit different. But her initiative and thoughtfulness and critical thinking, oh my goodness. I wouldn't be surprised, if Allison took an IQ test, that she wouldn't rank as a genius. She just wouldn't surprise me. She's just a quiet genius, So, but again, you can overlook talent if you don't get rid of your bias. And I think that's what I really want to emphasize. That's what I'm saying. At Hart Hanks helped us get over our biases, our natural biases, where, oh no, this person can't achieve the same productivity. Yes, they can. No. Allison can't work in packaging department. It would be unsafe for her. No, that's not the case. She can't excel. She won't last very long. No, that's not the case. That's not the case. So it's amazing if people want to, and this is the point, right? Where they have the desire to flourish. It is amazing what people are capable of doing and overcoming, regardless of what the disabilities might be. So that's what I wanted to emphasize. The book, Hiring the Best and Why It's Valuable. Now, you got to go do the hard work and read the book. And number 2, what I wanted to emphasize was hiring people that are better than yourself, or potentially could be better than yourself. You want to hire, great talent. People that have a commitment to delighting customers, that work well with others, and that will help you advance your cause. And that you're wanting to hire talent. That's the outcome, talent. And that talent will come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and skin color and worldviews. But what you're trying to do is hire talent. That is the goal. Well, I'm at the 40-minute mark here, so I'm going to stop here. Until next time, God bless.